for online participants. All right, good. Okay. Hi guys. I'm here to introduce a bit about MPPC, the Malaysian Public Policy Competition, as the participants here are aware of, and also our partners, TIOF. But for those who weren't part of the event or vaguely or like involved intermittently, I will introduce it like on a whole. So the Malaysian Public Policy Competition 2022 concluded just over 2 weeks ago. We have with us today a few familiar faces, our champion team and our first runner-up team. So thank you so much for coming physically. This event will be streamed. So yeah, all the best for the presentations later. We're really excited to hear from you once again. The Malaysian Public Policy Competition is, as you know, an annual public policy competition limited for Malaysians. Well, sound like a broken record saying those few words over and over again. But it's also the longest running competition catered for students by students in Malaysia. It's been running for 12 years actually. And this year's theme was under digital empowerment. So we wanted to push the boundaries and realize digital empowerment for the citizens. And under this main theme, we have 3 sub-themes under which our teams with us today curated a policy memo and as well as a policy website, which they will be presenting later. So in conjunction with TIOF's aim to realize data privacy and talk about data rights in the digital citizens, we have with us today our teams to present. So I think I won't take up too much of your time introducing any further. I think everyone's aware how MPPC works and how we will bring enrichment to TIOF's event. So without further ado, I will pass back to Edwin to introduce the teams and we can get on with the presentation. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you, Rachel. I think without further much ado, I'd like to invite the first team, the Fallen Durian Collectors, to come out on stage to present.
Right, thank you, Edwin, for the introduction. Testing. Sorry, can we bring out the website or is just a moment while we bring up our policy brief website, and we'll be introducing you to our policy. All right. Okay, let me just test this, see if it works. Okay, it works. Right, awesome. Okay. Right, so glad and honored to be here today to basically share with you what we have in store and what we believe can help better the cybersecurity environment in Malaysia, right? So as you know, in this day and age, technology has been changing much and advancing to several steps forward, right? It's bringing a lot of benefit to our society, but at the same time also bringing a lot of harm in the sense of proliferating cybersecurity crimes in our society. And unfortunately, it tends to affect different parts of society segments more than others. For example, the elderly population segment, right? Because they're more vulnerable, as we know, to cybersecurity crimes. So, right, as mentioned, it's proliferating, and here are some stats that we found basically through our research indicating how proliferate and what the cost of it is in Malaysia. It's estimated to be 2.23 billion in just 4 years alone, as well as the fact that Malaysians are the citizens in Southeast Asia that face the most social engineering scams out of all the other citizens, right? Southeast Asia. As mentioned, this is unfortunately affecting elderly more than other populations. I cannot seem to control the movement, but anyway, you can see here, whereby 55% of all cybersecurity crimes in Malaysia are affecting the elderly, and the elderly on average lose 3.5 times more when they fall victim to these crimes. And lastly, in a macro lens, This has cost them up to 1.23 billion Malaysian ringgit in 4 years spoken previously. So, in an actual event of our society, trying to protect these vulnerable segments of our population, cybersecurity crime, we actually require multiple defense layers, whereby we have internal defenses within the population demographic, whereby they should have the adequate training as well as awareness of these crimes to be able to protect themselves. When this fails, there needs to be adequate external defenses to protect them, such as robust cybersecurity policies to remediate their losses, perhaps, or whatnot, when we do fall victim for these crimes. Unfortunately, this multiple layer defense system is currently not really present in Malaysia, and we'll elaborate that further in our gap section. So basically, the problem, simply put, right, in a simple one-liner, if you can wrap your head around it, is that senior individuals lack the digital knowledge, awareness, and experience to safely navigate digital spaces. And therefore, when they do fall victim to cybersecurity crimes, our society also lacks the necessary support structure to protect them and remediate their losses. So how did we get here? What really happened, and why is Malaysia in this state of distress, right? So let's go to our gap section and we'll talk about that. So actually, Malaysia as a country has enacted quite a lot of ambitious macro policies that intend to bolster the cybersecurity environment and system in Malaysia. For example, as you can see here in the digital economy blueprint, we have also the Malaysia cybersecurity strategy and the national 4IR policy. All these macro-based policies have segments within them that try and bolster specific cybersecurity environments and sections within our society. Unfortunately, these policies have campaigns and awareness campaigns of cybersecurity that are trying to adopt more of a spray and pray approach. They're very broad-based. They're not very specifically targeted to vulnerable segments, and they lack efficiency in terms of resource coverage, as well as approach limitations, basically, to reach target demographics. So imagine if you actually have a vulnerable segment, but you're not actively engaging with them. You're just having a national awareness campaign and reaching out to the broad-based public, right? That's why it's really been quite ineffective in trying to raise awareness in these population segments, and the crimes are still proliferating. So Malaysia has also acknowledged that this is a problem, and they're trying to develop a national cybersecurity awareness master plan, whereby they can then have multi-party and multi-stakeholder collaborations to bring forth more targeted approaches to different population segments, right? And basically, this is currently in the process, and we wanted to leverage upon this drive and this planning to create more targeted approaches for the elderly population. So a second gap is in the fact that, as I mentioned previously, right, we have a lot of macro policies trying to tackle cybersecurity in Malaysia. Unfortunately, as you can see through this graph here and this diagram, huge number of these funds within these policies are skewed towards digital empowerment for the workforce, as well as the working employees, and not really to elderly digital literacy. Don't even mention minor amounts to the public digital literacy. Don't even mention the amount to elderly, whereby it's even a minuscule amount in comparison to awareness funds for just general public awareness, right? So here's a discrepancy. As you can see, we have a fund to cost discrepancy that we're currently in place in Malaysian policies. And yeah, it's heavily skewed to employability purposes, and our programs do not specifically target these population segments, as a summary. Right, so that's just the first part about it. I think the second part is also the fact that we lack really any sort of social safety net to protect the vulnerable segments when they fall through the cracks and they actually fall through these cybersecurity crimes, right? Again, these national policies, they are all about strengthening security and preventing it from occurring, but once it occurs, there's not really any steps forward to remediate the losses. So I'll now pass it on to Kai to share about what we recommend to remediate these problems.
Right. Right. So defining the problem statement is just half of the equation, right? So with every problem, we would have to come up with solutions that will actually tackle the problems that the elderly is facing. So initially, we identified that the elderly do not have the skills, awareness, as well as experience to navigate digital spaces safely. And that's why we came up with our first policy, which is that we want to incentivize cybersecurity awareness internalize cybersecurity awareness through education and training incentivization. So we believe that education is very important that so that elderly will be aware that there are scams like this are happening and what they can actually do about it. I remember there was a question asked during our Q&A where someone asked whether cybersecurity comes before or after awareness. And I believe that Edward put it very well that um, most of the time people do not know that they are scammed. So awareness is very important to ensure that they will be more careful and they will be able to identify what are the telltale signs that they are falling into a scam. So our objective of implementing this policy is so that we can incentivize authorities like the Department of Social Welfare to incentivize training specifically for the elderly. Because like mentioned in our policy gap, they have a lot of trainings for employability, but not specifically targeted to the elderly. And furthermore, we also want to align with the National Cybersecurity Awareness Master Plan so that we can have an integrated awareness through a public-private partnership as well. So in terms of what this will bring in the future is that from our research, we found that if we have a targeted and contextualized cybersecurity training program for the elderly, it can actually help them to prevent themselves from falling into scams by 73%. And again, from what was mentioned by Edward, it would be a sort of like a synergy with the NCAM so that we can mitigate their resource uh, approach and also coverage issues previously faced by the programs that they were running. In terms of how it will be implemented, yeah, we were proposing that we can reallocate the existing funds, which were 1.1 billion, 5% of it, into incentivizing these training programs. And we would incorporate topics such as password protection and also protective software, as well as social engineering education. And lastly, we also were aware that the elderly would have different levels of understanding on what are cybersecurity scams and such. So we also propose a tiering of the program so that those who are more advanced can learn the advanced syllabus, while those who are still learning at the beginner course um, can assimilate well into the program. As for our second policy, we were actually inspired by one of the judges back in the preliminaries, where he pointed out a flaw in our policy. He mentioned that no matter what we do, cybersecurity crimes will still exist because even though we have advanced technology, hackers would be even more smart. They would come up with even creative ways to break into people's mind and scam them of their valuable money and such. So that's why we had this light bulb moment where we thought, okay, then why not we have this support system for them if they do fall for scams. So that's why we propose an external support system through the National Cybersecurity Insurance. So at its baseline, the National Cybersecurity Insurance would cover the entire population, in which the elderly would benefit the most. And why we say that the elderly would benefit the most is because elderly would have large losses when it comes to cybersecurity scams As evident here, we found that they can remediate losses of up to 1.34 million if this insurance policy is being implemented, as well as we are able to make this premium more affordable if we roll it out to the entire population. And lastly, it is also a way for us to reinforce the first policy, whereby we want to refine our educational approaches based on the data that the agencies collect when people submit their insurance claims. In terms of implementation wise, we were thinking of pooling the overall society risk and coming up with a standardized premium, which is 9 ringgit 30 cents per month, with special circumstances applied to B40 and those who want a wider coverage. And also, the contributions will be default so that we can pool more funds and that we're able to cover and ensure that the insurance is sustainable for the long run. As for implementation wise, it is quite straightforward. It would be conducted in 3 stages with support from a few stakeholders. Yeah. So our stakeholders would mainly involve NACSA and also the Department of Social Welfare, as well as KCOM and JPDP. For our metrics of success, we were anticipating that we could subsidize 343,000 with 2 million seniors being educated in this program, and that we're able to mitigate cybersecurity crime caused by up to 50%. Implementation wise, it will be in 3 stages, whereby we have consultation with the relevant stakeholders, as well as conducting a pilot program so that at the 3rd stage, we can reevaluate our effectiveness and then we can continue to refine the educational programs. So for our second policy, our main stakeholders are pretty similar to the first one, which is also KCOM with like another addition, which is Perkeso, because they are more well versed in, I would say, social security schemes in Malaysia. Yeah, and also Ministry of Finance, and lastly, again, NACSA. So our metrics of success here is also that we can have a 80% uptake by the senior population, so that they would have a 50% increase in the quality of life in the remaining years they have. In terms of implementation, is also in 3 stages. We would also have consultation. Secondly, we were proposing to run a pilot program for 2 months to see how the insurance would go, and finally to have the tabling of the policy. So essentially, that concludes our policy problem statement, our gaps, and how we aim to address it, as well as how we aim to implement it realistically in a practical manner. Yep. Do you all have any questions? All right. Any questions? Yes. How do I address you?
I'm Yogesh. First of all, thank you so much.
Right.
I mean,
Nice to meet
for you have come up with a very niche and targeted for the senior citizen. My question is in terms of feasibility. By way of introduction, I mean cybersecurity from last 10 years, and I have been conducting cybersecurity awareness session. The next month is a cybersecurity awareness month in Malaysia, if you are aware about it. So we'll be conducting some session in school. We have been doing only for kids. So yeah, so for the elderly, right, I would like to know that have you done any feasibility analysis on this in terms of going back to that you are asking for 1.3 billion or 2 billion to put across for all this initiative. So you're talking about spending that much money on the pilot program or the overall program. How many senior citizens are there in Malaysia? How much you are proposing to spend per person? And what sort of trainings you plan to give in that budget cap?
Yeah. Right. Thank you for the interesting question. So, in terms of the feasibility analysis, this is how we conducted our budget allocation. So, to clarify your question, we were aware that the government set aside 1.1 billion to mitigate cybersecurity risk for the population, and we were proposing to take out 5% of it, which is 55 million.
Okay. I'm not able to.
Oh, right. So we were proposing to take 5% out of that 1.1 billion, which will be 55 million. So our hypothesis is that we have 2 million elders in Malaysia, and each elderly would require 3 classes to graduate. And in each 3 classes, we were assuming that it will be 2 hours each. And each class can serve 50 elderly. And when we do the math, we also looked at like the market price of how much people charge for classes like this, and we came up with a number of 150 for 2 hours. And so the cost would be 150 multiplied by 120,000 classes, which will come out to 18 million. And we also allocate remaining funds for any travel, venue, equipment, and content creation funds. So that is how we propose that we can make this program feasible and sustainable for the government to run.
Yeah, so to add on to what Guy is saying, basically we did just a high level estimation, right? High level cost estimation of breaking down based on how many classes an elderly needs to graduate or to become cybersecurity aware, based on market prices as well as market classes that we found. We can provide you a source later of which class we really found to put this benchmark in. So this is just, I know this is like a rough estimation ballpark, but basically the figure is within this ballpark in that sense. Of course, there could be tweaks here and there, but it's feasible to be able to reach this amount of population just based on our estimation exercise. So that's based on the cost feasibility. In terms of effectiveness of actually decreasing cybersecurity risk in an elderly person, we base our findings based on a research in the US for whereby they implemented cybersecurity guardians in community basis. So these guardians are actually elderly themselves that have been educated with cybersecurity knowledge, and then they just spread it out accordingly in their community, and they try to educate the community members as well by taking classes and whatnot. These have been found to be quite effective in reducing the risk by 75%. We think this community approach is quite applicable in Malaysia due to the fact that we are also a very collectivist country. Whatnot. So, yeah.
My follow-up and last question for this will be, cybersecurity risk is very broad. Can you please help us to understand what specific cybersecurity risk you are trying to solve for elderly? Okay, and will these trainings, are these trainings common for all these 2 million elders, or is it gonna be different for everybody? I mean, please provide more details about it to help us to understand.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think we have a section for that, or yeah. So basically, just to summarize, your question is that it's very broad, right? Cybersecurity risk in that sense, right? So what specific subtopics are we targeting to educate the elderly with, right? Correct. And then also, is it going to be the same for everyone, or is it going to be different, right? Because there's going to be different topics, and then different people who require different topic educations. So I think Kai mentioned just now that we recommend that this education programs be tiered accordingly to the elderly's initial foundational knowledge of what they have in regards to digital spaces and cybersecurity as well. So we understand that there's a lot of different subsegments, right, within cybersecurity. There's social engineering scams, and then within scams you have phishing scams. You have what other scams are there? Like, yeah, there are a lot of different types, right, accordingly. Yeah. So basically, what we intend to do, or what we recommend, is before the start of these programs, each of the elderly would undergo some form of foundational analysis or assessment on their base knowledge on different subtopics. And we recommend that these programs then prioritize to target subtopics that they lack knowledge in specifically, right? So maybe one elderly individual would be very well versed in phishing, but not in another form of scam or social engineering, then we would basically place them in a class that's focused specifically in that different subtopic to cover their knowledge bases.
Yeah, is social engineering the only cybersecurity risk you're trying to solve?
I think Kai can better answer this question.
I personally don't think that social engineering is the only cybersecurity risk that the elderly will be facing. There are also many other types that we have not covered, and we acknowledge that it's not comprehensive. But the reason why we were targeting social engineering is that we believe that the people who are at the elderly age will be most affected by social engineering because let's say this elderly lives alone and they get a random call from someone claiming to be from the Department of the Land and Taxes, and they tell them, oh, you haven't paid your land taxes for 5 months, and we have a 10,000 ringgit penalty for you. And if you don't pay right now, we will freeze your bank account and we'll blacklist your passport and so on. So the elderly will feel that, oh, what have I, is it true that I really didn't pay my land taxes? And when they are panicking, they will just deposit the money to that person without verifying their identity. So we were crafting our policies based on this assumption that they would be falling for scams like these. But we are also aware that there are other forms of scams. For example, there would be ransomware where they install something unknowingly, like perhaps they were trying to download some free movies, but they ended up like installing a malware or virus, and then their computers get locked in terms of like your files being encrypted, and the hackers would want them to pay a few millions just to decrypt the files. But we believe that ransomware like this would affect larger organizations. For example, a few years back, the NHS in the UK were victim of ransomware, which kind of debilitated their ability to run the hospital operations smoothly.
To add on to that, basically our research, we found that social engineering is costing the Malaysian population a lot, right? Mentioned previously, 2.23 billion just 4 years alone, right? And it's affecting the elderly the most. So we recommend to prioritize that aspect, basically. But yeah.
Thank you so much.
Right. I think if there's no further question, we'd like to invite to give a hand to our first team, the Durian Collectors, yes, for presentation. Thank you. Right. Without further much ado, we'd like to invite the second team, which is 3 minutes to get the stage.
To get one more mic.
Yeah, you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, cool. Hello. Okay. A very good morning to everyone here today. I'm Christina from Team 3 Minutes, and together with Nabil and Winchi, we will be presenting our policy, which is establishing an open data ecosystem, Malaysia Consolidated Data Sharing System, also known as MySITS, to harness fintech for economic empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 12 minutes, we'll bring you into a world where the consumer experience is drastically different from what it is today. You and I will have products and services specific to our needs and in a wide variety and of higher quality and at more affordable prices. And underlying this picture perfect scene is a database encompassing of information from enterprises and institutions far and wide, cooperating with one another to deliver better services. Imagine how much more we have accelerated as a nation. Keep that in mind as I show you how MySIDS can take us there. First, we'll outline our problem statement, followed by our policy formulation, and then our policy implementation.
Based on the statistics by the International Data Center in 2022, Malaysia's data-driven spending is forecasted to reach 7.94 billion ringgit by 2025, which means that data is increasingly important to drive economy to new heights. However, businesses are not harnessing the power of data as currently. Business and other organizations are working in silos to keep their data protected in separate databases. This actually leads to a few problems.
Firstly, there are people that are underbanked due to the lack of information to prove their credibility. And secondly, information asymmetry increases cost for lenders and borrowers due to the cost of acquiring data.
Hence, our policy is to establish an open data ecosystem which acts as a digital infrastructure and a centrally managed online consent system. We will walk through everyone with the 4 key stakeholders involved and their ultimate buy-in.
Our 4 main stakeholders are individuals, fintech companies, business organizations, and regulators. So what can each party expect from ICIDS? So firstly, individuals can expect higher transparency as we will exhibit trust with citizens as to what data is being shared, where it's being shared, and what exactly their data is being used for. They'll also experience greater convenience as they will have easy access to a consolidated system where they can see their financial and non-financial information. And they'll also have greater accessibility to finance because on top of providing the foundation for alternative credit scoring to exist, our policy also promotes personalized services and competitive loan terms to further extend our move towards financial inclusion.
Fintech companies and business organizations can expect lower cost of a customer acquisition. As you can see from the diagram above, the more customer you acquire from MySeats, the lesser the total cost you spend. They also could promote better quality services with information to analyze the customer spending behavior. Third-party service providers can provide personalized product to target customers. On the other hand, financial institutions can set interest rate for loans and other financial products based on more accurate credit risk assessment. With our planned pilot program that we will explain later, companies can get immediate legitimacy, trust, and branding.
And lastly, the government can expect greater economic activity as there will be a more competitive market and overall fairer distribution of resources. And we can also expect higher welfare as there will be a better standard of living overall.
Now, you may see a glaring concern with an open data sharing system. Won't people be scared to share their data? Of course. However, based on an experience study, 70% of consumers globally are willing to share more personal data, particularly when they see a benefit such as great online security and convenience. So people will subscribe to MySeats if they see that the benefit outweigh the cost. So will people be scared? Yes. But the answer that we should address is, can this fear be mitigated and how do we ensure that the data is protected?
Our cybersecurity infrastructure consists of 4 key elements, which is data encryption, higher fund allocation, cloud storage, and clone data.
So first, our encryption technology ensures that all inputted data sets will be encrypted. So basically scrambled up into an unreadable format and will be passed along the system with a key. And third-party service providers will have access to this encrypted data and the key to decrypt it and make use of information. And the decryption code will only be made available to them if the customer has consented to sharing their data.
Next, we will enable high fund allocation towards a multi-dimensional cybersecurity infrastructure. Because there are so many players involved and many data being shared, we would have a large pool of funds to invest in a stronger security, for example, tools and specialist teams to provide round-the-clock defense against cyber attacks.
Next, our data will be stored in the cloud, so it will be automatically be backed up.
And lastly, we'll also use clone data, which is basically fake data sets inputted into the system so that if we were to get hacked, the chances of real data leaking would be a lot lower.
So will business invest in cybersecurity? Yes, because according to an International Data Corporation study found regional investment in security-related products and services growing at a rate of 14.1%, with spending expected to reach US $39 billion by 2025.
This is because businesses understand the importance of data security and the increasing risk of cyber attacks in the world of digitalization.
They acknowledge the cost of investing in data security is less than the recovery cost in such situation where data security is compromised.
So, how exactly does MySIDS work? How does our mechanism benefit our stakeholders, and how do we ensure its effectiveness?
So take a look at the diagram here. When financial institutions, business organizations, and other fintech providers agree to share their data, all their data will be stored in the MySID system, encrypted. And all the consumers can then access their data in a consolidated system and choose one part of their data to be accessed by the third parties. So when the third parties are given consent, they can then access their data by using a decrypt code generated.
So how will business benefit from MySIDS? Take a look at the diagram here. On your top left arrow, with MySIDS, customer can more easily obtain finance through more accurate credit risk assessments because MySIDS provide a large pool of data. On the bottom arrow, customers will spend more and businesses will earn more. Additionally, businesses can directly target their products and services to consumers based on the data available in the system. Business will experience an increase in sales, thus the stocks will decrease. How do they get the stocks? How do they get the finance to buy the stocks? On your top right arrow, they will need to obtain finance will be cheaper through MySIDS, and the cycle continues. More customers, higher turnover, and easier finance.
But how does this compare with how it works traditionally? So, without MySIDS, customers will be less able to obtain loans due to traditional credit scoring and hence lead to less spending. And businesses will also experience lower sales, leading to higher cost of, for example, stock holding. And instead of target marketing that MySIDS supports, businesses will have to invest in mass marketing campaigns and will only benefit from a portion of the people that they market to. And if businesses need finance, they're less able to do it traditionally due to the traditional credit scoring algorithm. Therefore, the current system is actually less profitable for businesses and customers compared to with MySIDS.
So how do we ensure MySIDS is functioning effectively? Here are the 3 key points. So firstly, we'll have an advisory committee comprising experts and data providers to monitor and give advice on the concerns and improvements of the system. Secondly, we will use dummy data sets that simulate different conditions to test run the system before enrolling it. And lastly, we will publish a data standard format for all data providers to follow to ensure that the data is standardized and readable.
What is the role of regulators in MySIDS? This can be seen in 5 parts. Bank Negara will assist on open API frameworks and solutions for credit information. Next, MCMC will monitor and attend to complaints promptly by customers.
The Securities Commission will ensure capital market regulations are being followed and that investors are being protected. And then the Malaysian Competition Commission will safeguard the free and fair functioning of commercial markets for the benefit of consumers, enterprises, and the economy as a whole. And lastly, the Ministry of Finance will ensure effective and efficient distribution of and management of resources.
Moving on, we will address the timeline and measures of our policy.
Okay, so at the start, we will define additional metrics to track, and we will form our MySIDS advisory committee consisting of primary and secondary stakeholders and raise awareness amongst them about the benefits and risks of subscribing to MySIDS. We will also introduce our pilot program during this period that has scarce access to attract established organizations to be our first data sharers.
In the next 2 years, our ecosystem will be published and committees will provide guideline documents for the participants to follow. Here, we will also measure the readiness of MSMEs to participate in our data ecosystem.
In our last phase, our metrics will be fully implemented as a routine performance measurement, and advisory committee will continue to produce documents and other materials to support agencies. Temporary exclusions for organizations who publish corrupted data into MySIDS is part of our regulations to avoid data corruption, unclean data sets, and maintain high quality and integrity data sets. We will provide them assistance to ensure a smoother transition back into the ecosystem.
So how do we measure the success of MySeeds? We will consider 4 factors listed here. The first factor is activity, where we measure the take-up rate and the volume between the sharers and the individuals. Next factor is the output, where we measure the percentage of useful information transmitted. Thirdly, we will measure the outcome, which is the percentage of useful information transmitted. And lastly is the impact, which we measure the number of people who benefited from the system and the competitiveness of the market.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what we've brought to you today is an ecosystem that can increase the availability, accuracy, and affordability of data on a national spectrum. We've created a world where consumers can benefit from higher quality products at more affordable prices, while financial providers will participate in a more competitive market. In our ever evolving climate where there are consistent breakthroughs in the digital world, Malaysia will be lagging behind the movement relative to our regional counterparts and the rest of the globe if we do not subscribe to and reap the benefits of MySIDS, Malaysia Consolidated Data Sharing System. Thank you.
Thank you so much, team. 3 minutes. I think there won't be a Q&A session for this team particular. So yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. Would I sorry? I think they indicated. Yeah. No worries. Would you guys like to be asked? But feel free to approach them personally. I believe they are more than happy to explain to you their policy. All right. So the next team will be Team Anonymous, which is online. So without much ado, I'll invite Team Anonymous on screen. Yeah. All right. There they are. Yeah, we'll just take a few minutes.
Hi guys.
I'm not sure if they can hear us. So
Hello guys, can you guys hear me?
hi, Yanling and Shuhui. Can you hear us?
Yes, yes. Yes, yes.
All right. So I think without further much ado, we'd like to you may present your policy.
Right. Thank you.
So thank you, MC. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, we would like to thank the IO Foundation for inviting us to the policy sharing session. So let me introduce my team before we start. So we are a team called Anonymous. Our leader is V Sing Chong, but I'm sorry that he was unable to attend today. Next, my teammate Ti Suhei and I will be representing our group today. So we will start discussing the problem, second our policy introduction, and followed by the conclusion. So according to the 12 Malaysia Plan, the digital divide among citizens has created inequality and economic opportunity and widened the rich poor gap, and that lack of accessibility is the dominant problem. So first, lack of devices. It is clear that P40 are unable to buy devices because the cost may account for a large portion of their income. So the important statistic that must be taken into account is the fact that 36.9% of students under the Ministry of Education Malaysia lack the equipment necessary to participate in online classes during the pandemic. Furthermore, only 55% of rural P40 households have a computer, despite having 85% internet access, forcing them to share digital devices and falling behind in the digital world. Second is the lack of internet connectivity and accessibility in remote interior areas of Malaysia. So despite the government's implementation of programs like Jendela and so on, the pace of development is rather slow. So in contrast to the most densely populated areas like Kuala Lumpur and Penang, rural areas, especially Sabah, Sarawak, and Kelantan, rank the lowest in 4G availability, as evidenced by viral programs like Babyona in Sabah and other students in interior areas studying on trees to get better internet during the pandemic. But interestingly, we found that Kuala Lumpur, which also had the highest 4G availability, received the most complaint about internet connectivity. By the way, we can't deny that the interior areas like in Sabah and Sarawak are still facing the problems of lacking internet access. So from the survey by Dr. Ruryadi Jali towards East Malaysia regarding the internet connection, the result has shown that most Sabah and Sarawak citizens are not satisfied with the current internet connection, mostly due to unstable internet connection and also slow internet speeds in their areas. So this has clearly shown that a bigger effort has to be made to solve the internet problem in these rural areas. So now I will pass the floor to my teammates. Sohei.
All right. Thank you, Yanling. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Suhui. Now, I would like to introduce our policy named the Digital Rakyat. So, there are two goals under this Digital Rakyat policy. Firstly, the Digital Rakyat aims to provide and ensure every household has functional smart device. And secondly, it aims to reduce the digital disparity between the urban and rural areas. Therefore, this policy basically cover the supply side through the Connect Kampung project, CKP, and fulfill the demand side through the device for you. Now let's talk about the device for you first. So as you all know, a smart device can be a vital tool in expanding opportunity and imagination of Malaysians, especially those from underprivileged community in this digital age. So according to the data statistic provided by the Department of Environment Malaysia, there are 912 metric tons of laptop, which is the second highest amount of e-waste collected in 2021. This 912 metric tons equals to 912,000 kilo. Assume one laptop is 2 kg, so there will be more than 400,000 laptop per year collected as e-waste. So we were inspired by this data and proposed an initiative named Device for You to solve the problem of lack of devices that Yanling mentioned just now. So how does Device for You work? Refer to this infographic. We can see that it will all start with the collecting the usable devices such as laptop, mobile phones, and tablets that are no longer in use from household at the registered collection center or any outlet of telcos. So of course, this supply source come with some terms and conditions such as the donated devices should be in working condition or with some minor issues. And the laptop system should have system window 8 and above, as well as the phones should be 4G enabled, means that people cannot simply just donate Nokia 3310 in order to get the incentive. So to encourage more people to donate their usable devices or to ensure the sustainability of this device for you, we propose to give two options of incentive to the donors. The first option will be giving 3 months of unlimited data, and the second option will be giving e-voucher that have rebates up to 150 ringgit. So this e-voucher is related to smart gadgets sold by selected telcos to those who donate each devices. This is because since the household have donated their old devices, some of them might want to buy some new device, right? So therefore, this e-voucher can help to increase the sales of corporate telcos and at the same time attract more households to donate. Yeah, going back to the infographic part. So we can see that all the collected devices will be recycled and refurbished by the licensed recovery facilities and licensed manufacturers. According to the Department of Environment, there are 57 of licensed recovery facilities in Malaysia. So we also propose that the licensed manufacturers can be the lawyered repairers to recycle and refurbish the usable device too. So after that, all of the device will be distributed to the B40 communities together with a free SIM card that have 3 months of unlimited data. Refer to the table below. Yeah, so here we propose that all the students from B40 groups and all the household from B1 group under B40 can get the refurbished devices for completely free. This is because we know that students are the future pillars of a country, right? So we hope that students will make good use of devices for study and business purposes. So, and the B1 group is considered as extremely poor in B40. So, other than that, the B2 and B3, B4 household can purchase the refurbished devices according to this listed discount rate in the table. So back to the infographic, the B40 communities need to provide their income-related documents when they apply for the refurbished devices. This will take 2 weeks for the screening process. Lastly, we propose to use the Universal Service Provision, the USP fund, under the MCMC as the subsidy for the collection center and recovery facilities. Also, awareness program for the citizen and R&D to increase the efficiency of recycle and refurbishment, or to discover more incentive that people are more interested in other than the two options that we proposed just now, as well as the administration fees under this device for you. So this is that's all for the device for you part. Next, I will introduce another proposed solution, which is the Connect Kampung project, CKP. All right. As mentioned by Yenling just now, Kelantan, the interior area of Sabah and Sarawak, has the least coverage and unstable internet connectivity. Therefore, we propose the government to build multifunctional premises in these regions. However, due to the uncertain economic situation now, we propose it as a pilot project. So the multifunctional premises serve for research purposes and to launch educational programs. There will be learning hubs for people to learn ICTs and research facilities for the staff to determine the needs of the rural areas. These are to improve the digital literacy and to ensure the smooth connectivity in these regions. So the educational programs could be launched with time purposes. It is used to educate the vulnerable groups who could not use the smart devices effectively, and for those small businesses to use the digital payment and platform to perform their businesses. Currently, the government is launching Jandela, which is spent more than billions to expand the coverage and upgrade the facilities. The question is this effective? Thus, this Connect Kampung project, or we call it CKP, could act as special task force. The staff in those premises proposed are required to launch a monthly quality check, MQC. And this MQC is to test the connectivity issue and the speed of the rural areas, as well as the progress of government's transmission tower building progress. So this report should be published to the public monthly to increase the transparency of governments and the user experience, while the manpower for staff could be hired from the fresh graduates of ICT fields in local school. All right, that's all from me. Now I would like to pass the floor back to Yenling to present the implementation timeline and some risks of our policy. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Suhai. So now let's talk about the schedule for putting the policy into effect. Both Device for You and CKP will be subject to consultation in 2022 before being launched in 2023. So from 2024 onwards, we will keep implementing and monitoring the programs to ensure their success. However, there might be some risks for our policy as well. So first, a sizable sum of money is required for the policy. So we propose raising the weighted net revenue contribution rate of telcos to the USP fund. Second, by making the tenders process and cost public, corruption among the authorities caused by lack of transparency can be avoided. That due to the incomplete data, interior areas might still be missing. So we suggest that MCMC form a special team to conduct additional research. Fourth, programs for education and awareness can be implemented to reduce unfavorable public perception of Device for You. So the USP fund was corrupt. For example, when the former MCMC Deputy Director Muhammad Iskandar King was fined 87,000 ringgit and sentenced to 6 months in jail for accepting bribes to have the USB projects approved. So that's why we suggest making the tenders procedure and cost public to combat corruption by making the process transparent. So In conclusion, our proposed digital raya policy can solve and ensure the progress of internet connectivity from the supply side and hardware from the demand side. Furthermore, this policy is not just solving current issues, but having a future ambition as well by increasing the accessibility to technology, especially amongst the underprivileged. We definitely have a positive impact in driving our nation forward because our country can access quality education and achieve social equality as well as to boost the digital economy through the digital raya policy. So that's all from us. Thank you so much for listening.
All right. Thank you so much, Team Anonymous. Not sure if you can hear the applause, but basically there's a round of applause for you guys. So thank you so much for your presentation. We will now invite
Thank
the
you.
next team, which is Team ION. We'll take some time for us to invite them back on stage on air meets, and just in the meantime, just feel free to sit back and relax. All right. Just to test.
Hello, good morning. Can our screen be seen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yeah. Perhaps you like to go through a mic test just so that we can hear you. Oh, can you hear me?
Hello, hello.
Alright, hello. Is everything fine? Yeah.
Perhaps Sirhan, can you try?
Can you hear me?
Are you speaking?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, yes, I'm speaking.
All right. And perhaps Adam?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful.
Alright.
Yep. I think without further much ado, we would like to pass the stage to you and you may present your policy.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. I'm Sirhan from Team ION, and fun fact, actually, ION is derived from Oyen the cat because it's so cute and no one can really say no to Oyen the cat. So, my team and I will be presenting our proposal, which focuses on creating a wider outreach of digital financial literacy initiatives and the recognition of alternative data as a means of credit scoring. So, firstly, we aim to amplify the digital financial literacy because, first off, we all know that the thought regarding increasing financial literacy or financial knowledge is something that's overused and has been a broken record. But the numbers actually show that despite that, our annoyance towards the subject, it is actually still a very much critical issue, especially among youth in Malaysia. And Bank Negara actually reported that 1 in 3 Malaysians have rated themselves as having low financial literacy. And the youth actually make up 46% of the unbanked adult population in Malaysia. So, a bit of a fact check. Financial literacy is a very crucial life skill because, but it can be a very daunting subject to explore, especially given the jargon surrounding it and also the complexity of the subject matter and the many of the components that make up financial literacy itself. So, for many, it's not something that you would exactly delve into independently. And we have found some very interesting statistics, and we also observe that existing initiatives that actually aim to promote financial inclusivity or literacy aren't quite as inclusive and also extensive as they should have been because they tend to be inaccessible for those who are living in rural areas and are often done as a one-off thing. And another thing is language barriers have also been cited as a very prominent issue because usually they're done in English, but those who are left behind are usually those who don't really have qualification with more intensive on the ground approach, which aims to and build a fair and we know that and has been proven to be quite economic empowerment of the youth. And it's not because of that, it's not uncommon to hear that youths who actually want to go on to the next chapter of their life and also need to secure loan, for example, to buy their first house or to buy their dream car or to build their business from the ground up, couldn't quite do so because they don't have a credit, they don't have good credit score to their name. But of course, that is traditional credit scoring. So the next strategy for them is to usually build a credit history using a credit card or acquiring a personal loan. And the problem with this method is these commitments are very risky considering how the youth of this country have low financial knowledge, and also it goes back to our first area of focus. And really, it's a very vicious cycle because their application might not even be approved in the first place. And this meme actually sums it up very quite well, because even if their application does eventually get approved, it might be subjected to very high interest rates, low limits, and they might not really have much negotiating power. So, which is why we come up with the idea of using alternative data. So, it's definitely a struggle, and it's very unfortunate for youth who are already demonstrating good qualities of being exceptional paymasters in their records of paying their typical commitments like their KTV bills, Selangor bills, or even Netflix bills, something as simple as that. But sadly, these data are, which are considered into the traditional credit risk assessment. So that's why they actually later end up with taking unnecessary commitments just for the sake of it. Because alternative data, unfortunately, in Indonesia is very underutilized and under-recognized. Therefore, we found that it is high time for us to take alternative data as a means of credit scoring more seriously. So moving on to our problem statement, our policy proposals draw main reasons, which are the low rate of financial literacy amongst youth and the risk of credit commitments to the soft credit score. Uh, I'm sorry, it seems that error on my page. I'd like to read it which I'm so sorry, but can you help to share the screen? I think there's an error.
it would appear that everything that can go wrong is going wrong. We will still carry on because we still need them to be able to finish their presentation. We just we're already discussed. The connection of that speaker is outside of our control.
Alright. I'm so sorry to the organizers, but is there anything we can do, or how can we rectify the matter? Because I think Kamaru is uncontactable now.
Yeah, so we don't see the presentation. That's one thing, and Kamarul seemed to also not be with his scam. I don't know if he's having problems with his connection.
Alright. I think I'll just summarize the remaining parts. Would that be fine? Because I'm so sorry for taking up everyone's time right now because of the error. I'll try to share the screen one more time if it's.
Could you carry on with the presentation yourself?
Yep, sure. Is the screen visible?
It's coming up. Yeah. There you go. You can see it.
All right. Thank you so much. So, may I know when I was cut off? Was I cut off in the problem statement or in the policy introduction?
It's the DNS problem.
All right.
Yeah. You were asking when you were cut off, correct?
All right.
During the DNS issue.
Yeah.
You could
move on to the next issue. Okay. All right. So from the problem statements, I'll just like to clarify that our policy proposals actually try to tackle two major issues, which are the lower rate of financial literacy and also the risk of high commitments for the sake of credit scoring. So for the policy introduction, the best part of our policies, the two ones, are that they directly counter the two issues that we mentioned earlier. So we have two policies. The first one is amplifying digital financial literacy. So it's I think it's a privilege for everyone here in this room with us to know how important financial literacy really is. But unfortunately, youth, especially underserved youth, don't have that privilege and are lacking in this area, probably due to lack of awareness and also lack to access. But fortunately, research has found that youth actually want to achieve financial literacy, but the bigger question is how can they do so? So that's where policy comes in. So as an overview, our policy would empower youth by teaching them basic financial literacy. So this actually covers two parts. Firstly is your basic financial literacy, like separating your needs from your wants, how to manage your personal accounts, etc. And the second one is to expose them to available fintech services so that there's a continuum towards this effort. Because if we straight away skip to showing them what are the available fintech services, they might not be able to operate them well, which is why we think that it's very important for us to have this two-tier process. And then we will collaborate with government agencies, corporations, or even volunteers. And to make it more reachable for the people regarding the mode, we plan it to be done for via on-site, or if it's feasible, especially in rural areas which already have a good connection towards internet, we can do live streaming or even recordings. So on the time frame, since it is a long-term initiative, we plan to have it once a week for 3 months, because usually people in rural areas, they don't have a fixed working schedule. So that's why we need to be quite flexible in this matter. Then participants at the end of the program will also be assessed for their performance, and this data won't be just used to help these individuals, but rather to be used for the program's faculty future improvement. So that's where static and make it as flexible and also as targeted as possible. So the stakeholder involved are community leaders such as our JKKs or Ketua Company. We can have teachers, instructors like instructors like EPD. We can have entities, volunteers, influencers, of course, we do so these methods are chosen because for greater impact towards reaching our goals. Because firstly, it actually reaches out to the communities who are left behind. And then regarding our we believe that a long-term initiative actually ensures a more sustainable because we know our system can be like very dense, but it's like a cram session. So that's the goal of making people more financially literate in the event. And so the twofold course that I mentioned earlier,
Sihan, can you hear me?
so people, yeah. I think there's lagging on maybe I'm not sure whose end it is, but
I don't believe he can hear me. Yeah. Okay, so we will still have we are still having these difficulties on the connection, and it's becoming impossible to be able to follow the presentation. So regrettably, we're going to have to be moving to the next team, hoping that the connection is going to be better. Sorry for that, and thank you for presenting. Feels weird.
thank you.
Yeah, there is lag, and there's also cuts on the audio. Okay. Thank you, guys, though.
All right. I think we'll still thank them for the presentation. So do give them a round of applause. They're not here with us physically, but they are here with us mentally and also online. So the next team we will also invite, which is the online team. team dynamics. And we'll just give them some time to be on stage virtually. All right.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
Amrita, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you well and clear.
Okay.
Yeah, my teammate, Mr. Jet, is joining in. Just give me 1 second.
No worries, no worries. Hi, Zheng Jie. Can you hear us? Or at least me?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Am I audible from my side?
Yeah, you sounds
Okay,
good.
cool. All right, thanks.
All right. I will just take a second. I will set up everything for you.
Okay. Do we use the present to audience function?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you can present your screen.
Okay.
Just to make sure we can see everything before you start.
Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Okay. I just want to make sure I share the right tab.
All right.
You're able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can. Right. Without
Thank
further
you so much.
much ado, you may proceed whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And I'm Amirtha Sundaralingam, together with my teammate, Mr. Angzung Jet, and we are from Team Dynamics. Firstly, we would like to thank the IO Foundation for allowing us to present our policy today. And also, thank you to the esteemed audience and my other fellow participants from the MPPC Grand Finals. So we are here today to propose a subsidized data protection and privacy information management framework that is flexible for SMEs. So what are SMEs? SMEs are small, medium enterprises, and they are one of the key drivers and contributors of our economy. So for instance, they comprise of 98% of overall establishments and contribute upwards of $521 billion to Malaysians' overall GDP. That is about 38% of Malaysia's GDP in the year of 2021. However, in 2021, upwards of 84% of SMEs had suffered cyber threat incidents, at least one threat incident. And the problem is further compounded by the fact that upwards of 47% of SMEs feel that they're financially constrained to improve their cyber security protections and data privacy frameworks. Moving on. So why do we have to start now? So we have at least three reasons. Firstly, is that SMEs have doubled their online presence but have underinvested not only in their cybersecurity but also their data protection and privacy measures. And moreover, 92% of ASEAN business leaders agree that cybersecurity and data protection measures are important. And this is further breakdown by that upwards of 68% of business leaders want to increase their cybersecurity budget. This is also in line with our national and international commitments. As is earlier explained by Team Volunteerians, there are these macro national strategies such as the Malaysia's cybersecurity strategy, Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint, and the Malaysia's fourth IR policy. All of them have provisions within their policies and strategies to improve cybersecurity provisions for SMEs that are targeted towards SMEs. However, moving on. Sorry. Hence, we wanted to create our policy based on answering this particular question. So how can a framework built from an open standards of best practices of data protection that is customized for SMEs increase the ability in adopting informed decisions in managing and safeguarding their data privacy and successfully use? And further, we also want to include an extension through providing them a cloud computing platform as a means of cost-effective data management system in a long run. I know that sounds like a handful, but later on, my teammate, Mr. Jet, would digest our policy down. We do this in hopes of, firstly, mitigating data breaches that comes with SMEs' dependence on third-party softwares. And we also hope that it would minimize the abilities for SMEs in the face of rampant cyber attacks, and that we also want to manage concerns, mostly cost concerns for SMEs. The framework will achieve amongst these are at least 6 things we hope the framework would achieve. Firstly, that we hope that this framework would improve and require improve data transparencies within SMEs. It would also require improve them in understanding not only the mechanism behind data breach notification, but to familiarize them with such framework, again, which will be explained by my teammate, Mr. Jed. We also want to increase accountability on data management among SMEs, and also make them more cognizant about what is personal data information, and that would lead to hopefully make sure that they understand and comprehend proper security safeguard measures. And lastly, through our data cloud extension, we hope to provide a subsidized cloud computing platform that is not only for SMEs to store the information, but to manage the information. Over to you, Mr. Jet. Jet? Okay. Was there any technical issues? I was be able to be heard earlier, right?
Please, the speaker, make sure that you are not muted.
Yes, Jet. I think you're muted.
Jingjet, you are muted. You might need to unmute on your side.
On the bottom part of the screen.
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself on Air Meets.
Cannot.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my apologies. I would be continuing this part, and then he would be moving on to it. My apologies. Yes. Yeah. So once my apologies. So our framework is designed onto three phases. Firstly, we would have a consultation phase. And this phase is whereby we would leverage public-private partnerships in order to develop this data safe blueprint. The data safe blueprint will be based on industry standards such as the ISO 27702 and as well as the NIST 853. And we would also then move on to phase 2, which is an implementation phase. At that phase, we would be firstly, in order to ensure that we have sufficient buy-in, we would, in order to ensure we have sufficient buy-in, we will first conduct a pilot study. This pilot study will also be to familiarize SMEs, a select group of SMEs, to our framework, as well also further on in the pilot study, we would then, once they're familiarized, we would then move on them into adopting our cloud computing solution. And in the last phase, this is where we would hope, predicated on the successes and also learning from the challenges of our pilot program, we would then expand the framework and hopefully in the end, increased uptake of our framework and our cloud computing software amongst SMEs. So the question is, why cloud computing, right? So that is the second element of our policy. So first is to get SMEs to adopt a data privacy framework, and then to provide them with a solution that is based upon that includes them practicing this data privacy framework, but also a means of them ensuring that their data is safe and protected. So in a study that was done by KPMG, it stated that a survey, my apologies. One of the main concerns amongst SMEs in terms of what they want to invest going forward in the future is for security, privacy, but also infrastructure and cloud. The upwards of 47% in this survey agreed that the adoption of technology for digital transformation with cloud technology ranking at the third position. And now my teammate, Mr. Jet, I think, he will be addressing you on our timeline. Thank you.
All right, hello. Am I audible from my side? Hello.
Yeah, good.
Okay, all right, thank you. Apologies on the technical issue just now. So I'll just proceed to the timeline. So within the first 0 to 6 months, so what we'll do is to lay the groundwork for our customized data safe framework. So what we'll do is to adopt the best practices model from our international data privacy standards. So this includes ISO 27701 and also NIST 853. So this could be done through vigorous consultation with our cybersecurity experts, the industry leaders, so that the policy to be curated is suited to the Malaysia business ecosystem in the long run. And next, within the next 36 months, so what we'll do is to ensure that we have sufficient funding to start our pilot program for a period of 12 months. So 1,000 selected SMEs will be involved in this pilot study. And then the functionality and also the assurance of this data safe will be put under the test. And what will happen is that this pilot study will help us to pinpoint some of the preliminary problems and also potential bottlenecks. And it will help us to identify areas to be improved. So the success and challenges of this pilot study will be evaluated in a report form made available to the public. And if further consultations are needed, so they'll be done in an order to iron out issues before moving on to the next phase. So then we'll publish a finalized version of the data safe blueprint. So this blueprint will be sent for the government authorization. And at the same time, we'll be partner with licensed software providers to work on the cloud computing solution. Next, within 60 months, based on the success of our previous pilot program, we'll expand the scheme to involve more SMEs in Malaysia, preferably at a very minimal cost. So this would be an extension of the framework we have developed. So in which we have selected SMEs to take part in these pilot studies on the feasibility of our cloud computing solution. So which is a product of our public-private partnership. Then we'll publish the findings and reports on its sustainability and endurance. We also have experts to provide mentorship and guidance on the involved SMEs. And most importantly, the regulation part, we'll have a joint task force of NACSA, PDPD, Cybersecurity Malaysia, and SME Corp to regulate this framework. And the transparency of this framework and policy will be achieved through a publicly available quarterly reports and to assess the effectiveness of this framework. And in 5 years' time, we expect 70% Malaysia SMEs to subscribe to this cloud software. And not only that, what we want to ultimately achieve is to empower the SMEs with digital literacy and help them to achieve awareness on how to incorporate cloud computing solution as a means of cost-effective data management solution. So next, we'll be moving to the stakeholder part. So we believe that a sustainable data protection framework for SMEs is best feasible as a public good, and that's why our policy has a lot of buy-in for our stakeholders. So take SMEs, our beneficiaries, we are bringing the best value to their money with our policy. So this is an offer they cannot miss. On the public front, we have Ministry of Finance that funds us, SSM to promote our data safe framework, and we have MCMC and NACSA to help sustain it. And then with this, we'll seamlessly catalyze the acceleration of government interest for a digitalized economy. Moving on, we have our government-linked companies, GLC, such as MEDEC, Cybersecurity Malaysia, and MTDC on the on the other hand, to actually help us to increase the revenue and funds and accelerate the growth. Last but not least, we have cybersecurity leads like Deloitte and cloud software providers like AWS. So what we do is to establish a robust partnership with them. So to provide a more business-friendly platform in Malaysia, from tax credits, low-cost loans, and faster licensing. So next, moving on to the sustainability part. So we definitely acknowledge that our policies impact and implementability is very essential. So as local businesses, SMEs are close to our life. And by strengthening them, they gain trust and support from fellow Malaysians and in turn add values to our citizens' life through the culturally compatible, digitally competent businesses. And to address the risks, we foresee some of the mitigations. One of them is to increase the SMEs' awareness of the policy through a series of awareness campaigns. So while the solution is not financially sustainable for long term, what we aim to do is to introduce a graduation scheme that assists them in transition to the open market. And lastly, in order to reduce monopoly in governance or potential corruption by public bodies and GLC, they'll be audited by the Auditor General and oversight by the Public Accounts Committee. So now we'll move on to the conclusion. So as mentioned earlier, we believe and acknowledge that the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated SMEs' embracement of the digital ecosystem. So, however, there have been increased cyber attacks on our SMEs, and SMEs are very vulnerable in protecting their data. So what we are proposing now is to make data privacy and cybersecurity a digital good. And how this can be achieved is through our data safe scheme and the data cloud extension. So we'll be engaging in public-private partnership to establish a comprehensive, cost-effective data protection framework. And then we also have a standardized blueprint of the best practices for our SMEs, modeled from international data privacy and security standards, such as ISO 27701 and NIST 853. And we also have a secure cloud computing system for SMEs to store, process, and analyze their data. So eventually, we hope that we can ensure and secure Malaysia's pioneering role in the fourth industrial revolutions. So thank you. And so these are our teammates. It's a very diverse team, and one of our teammates, unfortunately, she's not able to attend to the for the sessions today. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. And that's the end of our presentation.
Then we're open to any questions, any at all.
Thank you so much, Team Dynamics. Yeah, I think this team indicate that they are open for Q&A. So just like to open the floor if there's anyone who would like to ask any questions in regards to their policy.
Oh, I didn't know we have the option not to have a Q&A session.
Yeah, you do have as well. But I think previously
No,
you
it's okay. It's okay. I prefer questions.
Right. So anyone would like to ask any burning questions? Yogesh? All right. So I think sure. That would be a good tip. Thank you so much. Yeah. I think the next one has. So I think if there's no further question for this team, thank you so much for your presentation and for your time. So we'd like to give a hand once again for our Team Dynamics. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Have a good day.
Invite our last team, which is Team. Can you get back here? Right. Team Minda, which we'll be inviting on stage virtually right now. And yes, for this last team, they are open for Q&A session. So if you have any question, you may ask them at the end of the session. Okay, we can see Evie and also Joel.
I would like to confirm with the team from production that their team member Lee Chingjie is not present today.
I believe unable to make able to present.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there will be just the two of them. Am I correct?
No, Amrita is from the previous.
Yep.
Right, just a second. All right. Yeah. Perhaps before we start, perhaps we can go through like a mic check. So we can go with Evie since you are unmuted right now. Can you hear us?
Hi.
All right. How about Joel?
Hi, mic test. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, great. Thank you.
So I think I'll pass the stage to you. So Team Minda, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Evie. And this is Joel. And together with our friend Alison, we have formed MINDA, in short for the Malaysian Institute of National Developmental Advisors. Today, we'll be focusing on the issue of fintech for economic empowerment. Our analysis shows that there's a positive growth in fintech, but its potential to fill the 8% unserved and 40% underserved groups has yet to be fully harnessed. The problem we have here is that there's a disparity between the fintech demand and supply markets for these unserved and underserved, particularly for the micro enterprises and small medium enterprises, MSMEs, who are in need of financing for business solutions. Minda presents to you today the Fintech to You policy to address the supply-demand mismatch for inclusive fintech capable of reaching the MSMEs. On the supply side, the problem we have is that our current policies place a strict emphasis on risk mitigation, but there's still a lack of support to back the supply. On the demand side, a lack of awareness and understanding of fintech hinders MSMEs from adopting it. Building onto various initiatives that we already have, Strategy 1 of Fintech to You aims to consolidate and curate an innovative ecosystem with an additional focus on what we call social fintech. And Strategy 2 seeks to streamline the nudging of MSMEs into adopting fintech through integrated training to achieve this end-to-end policy you see here.
All right, so now let us take you through the policy journey. Starting from strategy 1, imagine you are an entrepreneur with a small team and a budding idea to start a fintech company. So to give you a benchmark, without our fintech to you policy, you will be placed in the existing general regulatory sandbox by Bank Negara Malaysia for supervision and risk management. Our solution, on the other hand, appreciate that every fintech is different, and so we cannot use a one-size-fits-all regulatory sandbox. Therefore, building on the existing framework introduced by Bank Negara Malaysia, Minda believes that there is a need to further create a differentiated and specially tailored environment for the experimentation of each fintech. Even if we just look at the normal banking sector, it is the case that the regulatory approach is different for conventional banks, which has a strict credit risk assessment, and developmental bank, which has a comprehensive performance measurement framework. So why not apply this logic to fintech as well? Hence, Scheme A essentially proposed an innovative and specific sandbox that is unique and distinct from each other to facilitate the developmental goals of a specific fintech in reaching the MSMEs. But what if we want to take this a step further? In order to incentivize you as a fintech entrepreneur to go into the riskier underserved markets, Scheme B enables you to become a social enterprise through the combination of the innovative sandbox and the existing social enterprise accreditation system. As a fintech entrepreneur, you may want to be reshaped as a social enterprise where your product will be directed to the underserved MSMEs. The benefit of reshaping into a social enterprise is such that you'll be able to access social enterprise funding and support system, including private sector incubators like Sunway iLabs and government support through the Government Social Entrepreneurship Action Framework. As such, social aims to enhance the financial inclusion can be placed at the core of fintech firms. Building onto Scheme B, Scheme C aims to nudge the social fintechs into partnerships that are essential for the promotion of inclusive fintechs. Firstly, we want to take you through a step-by-step registration approach where you'll first start from self-registration, regardless if you are a normal fintech or social fintech. As your ideas get mature, you will receive the ready to serve approval, meaning that your product is ready to be marketed. After that, you can also get the ready to partner approval for you to scale your fintech and further integrate yourself into the industry with incumbent financial institutions. While you as a fintech firm have a strong culture of innovation, technological expertise, and structural agility, incumbent financial institutions have a huge existing consumer base and financial stability. A collaboration is therefore mutually beneficial for you and the financial institution, resulting in the revamping of traditional financial services and leading to higher level of financial inclusion, especially in the developing markets and sectors. Alternatively, you are encouraged to also collaborate with existing developmental financial institutions, DFIs, like SME banks, which are mandated to promote financial inclusion for the underserved. Such collaboration will allow you to tap into the underserved market, hence gaining outreach to the micro enterprise and SMEs, as well as we will discuss in strategy 2. In order to help you navigate through this approval and opportunities, we propose the creation of a central entity. In our case, Minda named it the FinTech Innovation Lab. This central entity will coordinate all these activities for the development of inclusive fintech, hence ensuring an integrated and streamlined policy approach. This serves as an improvement of the ad hoc program that Malaysia have currently, like the collaboration between BNM, UNCDF, and MDEC program, and thus will offer more consistent support throughout the entire life cycle and stage registration of fintech.
Alright, onto the demand side of things, I'd like you to step into the shoes of the MSMEs that have always relied on traditional financial services. If I tell you you should adopt fintech, you're going to be hesitant about it. You might not know enough about the technology, you might not have trust in it, and you might have misconceptions about it. Therefore, the second strategy, starting from Scheme A, builds onto MDEC's attempt to digitalize SMEs and is inspired by events like Echelon, Tech in Asia, and FinTech Socials, which explore a future in fintech. The emerging MSMEs will need a business license to operate, and hence a government-mandated fintech training can be integrated into the system. Relevant technical personnel and key decision makers from your MSMEs will have to attend the training so that they can understand the benefits and involve themselves in the adoption of process from start to end. The delivery will be channeled through the DFIs and NGOs in the Central Coordination Entity, FTIL, as mentioned earlier. The idea is that the training will be integrated into your day-to-day operations and positioned at your points of needs. As such, you don't need to go out of your way to undergo the training. The long-term vision is to create a self-sustained peer-to-peer learning model as seen in Scheme B, where MSMEs like you who have materialized the benefits of fintech adoption will be invited as guests in the training of other MSMEs. The benefit of this model is that it's more persuasive. Think about how you're more likely to do something because your friend asked you to instead of your parents. Moreover, the fast-paced development of fintech requires constant learning and thus a streamlined learning loop. Let's move on to the implementation timeline. These two complementary strategies will be implemented concurrently from the foundational building, piloting, implementation, scaling up, and review in a 5-year roadmap as seen here. For strategy 1, we'll start from foundational building with piloting and research, followed by implementation and integration into the sandbox and social enterprise ecosystem. In 2026, we should be able to push out the ready-to-serve phase and establish the FTIL lab before we conduct a policy review in the 5-year plan. Similarly, for strategy 2, we'll start from establishing and executing the program before conducting a program review to calibrate it for the long term and garner support from the relevant stakeholders. Lastly, we'll conduct an impact assessment for our policy. So there you have it, the end-to-end FinTech to You policy, which tackles the supply and demand mismatch that stands between the underserved MSMEs and their full potential of economic empowerment. Once again, we're Minda, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Team Minda. Is there any, I would like to open up Q&A. Is there anyone who would like to ask any question? Right, we do have one.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. I'm Kwang. Yeah, the camera is there. Hi. So, the entire policy is that we want to encourage people to use more fintech, right? So, my question is, according to some of my interviews with business owners, right? The reason they don't adopt fintech is not because that they think fintech is non-secure or something like that, but the reason they don't use fintech is because they want to what's the English term? To skip their taxes basically. Because if there's a fintech, which means there is a monetary trail, which means the LHDN can trace you even better. And of course, you can't do fake taxes and stuff. So how do you address this spectrum of people that don't want fintech just because purely they want to skip on their taxes? Thank you.
Yeah, question and also valid concern as well. Point about our policy focusing on the market, so that's the 40% underserved. So these markets typically their business income volume aren't at. You have to pay, and even if they fit from the social enterprise system, tax waiver and banks to apply for the price because you're accredited under the you will be fits as well, which is why communicating for between our sandbox and ecosystems conducive for inclusive fintech, because nature of our make the financial system inclusive,
Hi,
right?
Evie. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I think there's some issues with your audio and camera. So you are being like cut off here and there while you're speaking. But perhaps is it okay if we get Joel to help answer this? I guess Joel now is the in a way the most stable one in terms of connection. Is that okay, Joel?
Yeah, all right. Just to follow up on Evie's point is that in this case we are trying to promote a end-to-end policy with the underserved, which is the MSME, the 40% in mind. So in this case, we are trying to tackle this particular underserved market, and of course, I think that the question with like tax exemption, I mean tax escaping, is a valid concern. Um, and we think that it is through like we are hopefully that through this supply side, which is this innovative and specific sandbox, we can tailor a particular product that is more suitable for a particular firm or particular MSMEs, so they can adopt it, and hopefully the benefits of the product itself outweighs the need to like escape this tax. And on the demand side, what we hope to achieve is through education, hopefully tell people to how they should and why they should appreciate fintech. Because I feel that when it comes to the question of not using fintech just to escape tax, I feel like this is not the sustainable way forward, because eventually we'll be moving to a reality where everybody endorse fintech, and fintech is no longer just a something that is sufficient to help us boost our business initiative and all. It will become something that is necessary, a necessity that form part of our life in the future world. So therefore, we hope that through this whole process, we can tackle the underserved market as well as teach people why it is that we should appreciate fintech. Yeah, for the benefit of the long run.
All right, there's a very big 2 thumbs up for you for the answer. So yeah, thank you so much for answering. Is there any other question from the floor? So I guess there's no. So thank you once again, Team Minda, for your presentation and also your answer for Q&A. We'd like to give a round of applause.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, everyone.
All right, everyone. So that's the end for the first section of our day, which is the MPPC presentation. So thank you so much once again. And the next activity, I think is the most exciting one, is lunch. Right. So today we'll be having Vietnamese lunch. All right. So for lunch, we'll be having it at Viet Thai, which is like across the street. So we'll be traveling there together as a group. And yes, we'll be back. For those online, thank you so much for joining us once again. And we'll be back here at 1:30 for the next session. Before 1:30 for the next session. So thank you so much for joining us online. And for those that is here, we'll depart here in just a moment. So yes, please do get ready. And in terms of their belongings, yeah, you can leave it here. We will have someone here to guide, take care of it for you. All right. Thank you.